Good day, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, we are taking a closer look at a moment from the Kash Patel hearing that is already sending shockwaves through Washington and far beyond it.
Thanks, Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel. I remember January 6th. Colleagues running through our halls to flee the mob, colleagues shouting that rioters should be shot, us returning to our constitutional business through hallways cleared for us by automatic weapons carrying SWAT teams. None of you, none of us, said those violent rioters should be pardoned. A Republican colleague said such pardons would be hard to believe, even absurd. Your former colleague, J.D. Vance, said the violent rioters should not be pardoned. Even Jim Jordan said pardons would, and I quote, focus on all the people who didn't commit any violence. Well, Trump pardoned all of them. And there's a lesson in that. Every time you think Trump would never go that far, rethink that. We all seem to agree that violence against police is unacceptable, yet more than 600 people who physically attacked Capitol Police officers were just put back on the street, part of a 1,500-person personal Trump army, now out there with people who have proven themselves willing to do violence on Trump's call. In only 10 days, some are already back committing crimes. We've also tried as a committee together to address the dangers of illicit drug sales over the internet, and I assume we're all against murder for hire. But Trump also just pardoned a dark web operator sentenced to life in prison for trafficking illegal drugs online and accused of soliciting murders for hire. Those pardons, as Mr. Patel has said, are a mistake, but they are also a signal that we are entering a strange and dangerous time. That is the context for today's hearing. Warnings that the FBI could become Trump's enforcer, use the powers of law enforcement to stifle speech and dissent, punish political rivals of either party, and hand out free passes, get out of jail free cards to violent supporters are warnings we should heed. Here are some warnings of this nominee's Trump administration colleagues. Former Attorney General Bill Barr said, this nominee has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, end quote, and we would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That's for the deputy position. Former CIA Director Gina Haspel was reported threatening to resign rather than have this nominee serve under her. John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, said, I didn't think he was qualified. I was forced to hire him. Trump's deputy national security advisor, the nominee's former supervisor, said, his ideas are ludicrous. He's absolutely unqualified for this job. He's untrustworthy. And it's an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature. That's from Republican appointees who worked with him. And here's what this nominee himself has said about using his office to prosecute journalists. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that a correct quotation, Mr. Patel?
Senator, that's a partial quotation.
But it's correct.
In part.
Regarding his publication of his enemies list, Mr. Patel proclaimed, the manhunt starts tomorrow, and reposted a video depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it, was my question.
And that's me. at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An Inspector Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists. When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness, and the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded. There is an unfathomable difference between a seeming facade being constructed around this nominee here today and what he has actually done and said in real life when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. And if you look at history, you see the danger of security chiefs in authoritarian regimes becoming the tools of political power. The characteristics that they often show are that they are vengeful, that they are grandiose, that they are intemperate, that they are partisan and blindly loyal, and that they are servile and won't say no. I'm afraid that the history of this nominee's conduct raises those warnings. And I yield my 1 second back.
Before Senator Cornyn, you said you'd like to explain something. I forget the point he made. You can do that now if you want to.
Simply this, Senator. In the collective, all of those statements are taken out of grotesque context. And anyone that thinks my 16 years of service isn't exemplary on how I would proceed if confirmed as FBI is intentionally putting false information into the public ether and creating more public discourse. The only thing that will matter if I'm confirmed as a director of the FBI is a de-weaponized, depoliticized system of law enforcement completely devoted to rigorous obedience of the Constitution and a singular standard of justice.
Before I call on Senator Cornyn, I'd like to say that we've heard about the January 6th pardons.
What you just heard was not simply a political speech or a partisan jab. It was a warning grounded in memory, history, and a deep concern about how power is exercised in moments of national stress. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our in-depth coverage and clear explanations of the stories shaping our democracy. The Lawmakers speaking opened by taking us back to January 6th, not as an abstract date, but as a lived experience. Members of Congress running through hallways, hiding in secure rooms, escorted back to the chamber by heavily armed SWAT teams. This is important because it reminds viewers that January 6th was not just a protest that got out of hand, it was a violent disruption of constitutional government. At the time, there was broad agreement across party lines on one key point: violence against police and lawmakers was unacceptable. Even prominent Republicans said pardoning violent rioters would be unthinkable, even absurd. That consensus matters because it sets a baseline for judging what came next. If this kind of context is helpful to you, subscribe now so you can keep getting reporting that adds clarity instead of noise. Then came the pivot, and it is the heart of the concern raised in this hearing. Despite those earlier statements, President Trump ultimately issued sweeping pardons, including for individuals convicted of violently attacking Capitol police officers. More than 600 people who assaulted law enforcement were suddenly released, folded into a much larger group of roughly 1,500 pardoned individuals. The Speaker frames this not just as a legal decision, but as a signal. The message, critics argue, is that loyalty to Trump can outweigh accountability under the law. This is where the commentary goes deeper than the hearing itself. Pardons are legal, but legality is not the same as wisdom and not the same as consequence. If you want more analysis like this that connects the dots, remember to subscribe to the channel. The lawmaker goes further, pointing out that this is not a hypothetical danger. Within days of their release, some of the pardoned individuals were already accused of committing new crimes. That detail underscores the argument that these were not harmless offenders caught up in a moment, but people with a demonstrated willingness to use violence. The concern being raised is not just about the past, but about the future. What happens when people believe violence on behalf of a political leader will eventually be forgiven or even rewarded? That question should matter to everyone, regardless of party. If you value reporting that asks those uncomfortable but necessary questions, hit subscribe so you stay informed. Again, the argument is not that the president lacked the power to issue the pardon, but that the choice sends a message. It suggests that even the most serious crimes may be forgiven if they fit within a certain political narrative. For continued coverage that explains why these decisions matter, do not forget to subscribe. All of this sets the stage for why Kash Patel's potential leadership role at the FBI is viewed with such alarm by some lawmakers. The fear expressed in this hearing is that the FBI could be transformed from an independent law enforcement agency into a political tool, an enforcer rather than a guardian of the rule of law. The concern is that dissent could be chilled, political rivals targeted, and supporters shielded from consequences. Whether one agrees with that assessment or not, understanding the stakes is critical. This is not just about one man or one hearing. It is about how institutions function when tested by intense political pressure. If you want clear, contextual reporting on these institutional stakes, make sure you are subscribed. In the end, the message delivered in this hearing is a cautionary one. Every time Americans assume that a line will not be crossed, history shows that it sometimes is. The lesson, according to this lawmaker, is vigilance. Democracy depends not only on laws and powers, but on norms, restraint, and accountability. As this story continues to unfold, we will keep breaking it down, explaining what it means, and separating fact from rhetoric. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay informed, stay engaged, and better understand the forces shaping this moment in American politics.